Welcome to the Soul of Enterprise, Business in the Transformation Economy, sponsored by Woodard, building your ideal practice with coaching, education, community, and resources. I'm Ed Kless with my friend and co-host Ron Baker, and folks, on today's show, we have our interview with Jackie Meyer. Hey, Ron, how's it going?
Great, Ed. I'm really looking forward to this.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun conversation. Jackie and, well, the two of us have had many conversations, and I'm sure this is going to be a fun part of that conversation. Let me just read her in so we can get started on our conversation. Jackie Meyer is a distinguished figure in the accounting profession, celebrated for her innovative contributions and leadership. As the founder of TaxPlanIQ, she has revolutionized tax advisory services with a platform that streamlines tax planning and implementation. Jackie also hosts the Concierge CPA podcast, where she shares insights and best practices for accounting professionals. Her dedication to the profession has earned her recognition as a 40 under 40 honoree since 2018. Beyond her professional achievements, she is committed to promoting better health, wealth, and relationships within the accounting community. Welcome to the Soul of Enterprise, Jackie Meyer.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here finally. I've known y'all too for a while and really look up to both of you, and you've been great mentors to me. So I appreciate it.
That is awfully nice of you. But we have been on a tear of having people that we said we should have had you on a long time ago, including Paul Dunn, by the way. So
yeah, he's amazing.
So it's time for us to rectify some of those things. Anyway, Jackie, I wanted just to introduce our audience to you, and let's just start from your journey. You began and were running a boutique CPA firm, and then launched TaxPlanIQ. Talk about that transformation and why more about why it happened than anything.
Sure. Yeah. So I was running a pretty traditional CPA firm practice. I mean, we were remote. I guess I'd call us modern since 2010. I was a natural born workaholic. And so when I started having kids, 2013, 2016, it all went kind of downhill because I couldn't work in the middle of the night anymore, or all the nights and weekends. And so I had to kind of reevaluate my life because it was causing a lot of health problems for me, postpartum and chronic fatigue and whatnot. And I also was missing out on everything with my kids. So I hired a business coach, which was one of the best decisions of my life. And he was like, who do you love working with and why? And it was high net wealth executives in my local area. I live in South Lake, Texas. I'm currently in Vegas, wrapping up engaged. So my voice is hoarse. My head is, half cloudy there, but it's all good. Yeah. And so we redefined my firm to lead with tax advisory, which is something I had a passion for. And along those lines, I came up with a pricing methodology called the ROI Method, and it was a hit. So the firm took off. We quadrupled revenue. I got down to 56 clients. And then COVID hit, and I was kind of bored, honestly. Like, we were meant for COVID because we were already like all paperless and everything. And I went to a vendor of mine and I said, hey, I have this vision of pulling all of the information and strategies and whatnot that I've learned over the years that have made my firm such a success into a SaaS product. Do you want to create this for me? I'll give you 20% of sales. I'm a female. I don't get all the venture capital. So I had to, wheel and deal a little bit. And they said yes. So the rest is history. After like 1 year, the SaaS product was worth more than my CPA firm of 12 years. And I decided to sell the firm and just double down on working with other accountants because I found that that's really where my passion and purpose aligned.
And which is a great story. And you also were a member of the accelerator program with AI CPA, which I know you're out at Engage. So talk a little bit about that exposure as well.
Oh, it was wonderful. I mean, anytime that we can't say they partnered with us, or there's very words that we cannot say with AICPA, but
right.
We were part of the cohort in 2023. I was able to participate in like the New York Leadership Summit, which was amazing, at the AICPA, and then speak that year. And it really just rallied the troops around what we're trying to do. And then since then, we've just been growing strong. We're at about 500 firms on the platform. This week, we live released the ROI Method of value pricing, which is embedded in TaxPlanIQ, obviously, but it's a separate methodology that anyone can do. You both have, been in discussions with me around it to help me kind of figure out how to best present it to people. But it's really just a tangible calculator for people to use to value price. And it's going out live this week to all of AICPA members, 695,000, I believe. So that is a huge step in the right direction for the profession.
So what has been your experience with regard to pushback on this? Ron and I have been doing this a long time as well, and wonder what you see as the current pitfalls. Why are people still resisting the value pricing movement and even subscription pricing, all of those things? Because it's still not ubiquitous, right? We still haven't made all the folks convert over. So what's the pushback still?
Well, I think the pushback over the last couple of decades has been accountants want math. They want a true calculator, right? That's going to give them a number. And so, I mean, that's essentially what I created. And I know Ron and I have a little bit of a fundamental difference around the tangible benefits of value pricing, which we can talk about. But I think that's held a lot of people back. I think that people just automatically assume that you're doing something wrong by coming up with a new methodology or whatnot. And that's where I think the AICPA and this week and moving forward over the next year, I know that they're really honing in on tax advisory services, TAS, which is, where I live and where I think everyone should live in the accounting profession. And so I think those are going to be big pushes and big changes for people that have just been super resistant for no real good reason.
Because you even see it a little bit in, I know one of the big platforms that you have is your accounting firm influencer Facebook group, which is over 6,000 members, something like that now.
Yeah, we have about 8,000. Yeah. Okay.
But I'm a participant in that, and we still see pushback even in that group, right? Among people who are supposed to be. So to explain your sigh is really what I want to know.
Explain my side of the story,
your sigh. Why did you sigh when I was
sigh? Oh, because that group is just like it's like the bane of my existence, because I created it organically as I spoke. I wanted the profession to move forward, but there's so many resistors still. And sometimes, honestly, I feel like they don't want to hear the thought leadership. They don't want to hear moving the profession forward. Some people just want to complain, and there's a time and place for that, but I'm a problem solver. And so I'm like, we know we have so many resources out there now. Let's support one another. Let's keep moving forward. Let's not just stay stuck in the past,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is interesting that how often the conversation comes back to that. But maybe, with agentic AI, we're just going to be able to create a bot that's going to deal with all the naysayers and just,
There you go. Yeah. Well, there is an app that trolls people now. So, we'll just get the app to start trolling them.
Trolling them. So I want to talk a little bit about your personal transition. You said that this really took off for you, but what did that mean for your family life? I mean, one of the things that Ron and I are interested, especially, and you mentioned it in your bio, healthier, wealthier, wiser. What has it meant for you personally to make this transition?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I think it kind of just saved my life. Like, my brain was so foggy that I could barely function. I remember I went to lunch when my daughter was 1 year old with my husband, and I was talking so slow. He's like, "Are you okay? What is happening to you?" I was like, "I can barely process right now." And I even warned him. I was like, "I don't know if having a second child is going to allow me to stay in this profession. I don't know if I can keep up, And there's this facade that you have to be this perfect CPA and firm owner and stuff like that. And it was just really hard to be my authentic self. So yeah, there was a lot there.
Yeah.
What else about it?
No, but I want to know, like, what helped you make that transformation? I mean, that's what Ron and I are talking more about, these transformations, and your story is such a, and I appreciate you sharing the personal insight here, because I think that's what people need to hear now. The more personal stories. So that's what I want. Yeah.
So I think about this a lot. I've coached several hundred accountants now, and I had someone text me this last week, and they're like, "I'm stuck. I'm getting burnout again, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, "Listen, this is a choice. I know you don't want to hear it, but burnout is a choice. You have to choose that you are not going to allow everyone to step all over you. You're going to choose that you're not going to give your, entire heart and soul, right, off to everybody around you, your clients, your family, etc. You have to set boundaries, and people just can't seem to do that. And that's where they tend to get burnout. So I set a ton of boundaries. I did client onboarding guidelines, which at the time, not a lot of firms were doing, just to say, here's what you need to do for us, and here's what we do for you, right? And I just became a lot more transparent with clients about, look, like, this is how we're going to operate. You can either stay in our world or not. And that's really hard for a lot of accountants. But once you do it, I've never heard anyone say that they regretted it. Your value proposition drastically increases, your hours goes down, right? Because advisory is about knowledge, not about time, obviously. And so I was able to go from like 60-hour work weeks down to 4-hour work weeks, like Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Work Week book, which is something I read in college and was like, oh my gosh, I want to be like that someday. And so, yeah, and it all just came down to like daily choices of where I'm going to put my intent, and that revolved around making sure I got my family time in and doing the highest value services that I could in my firm.
Mm-hmm. And I think, Ron, I hope, or if not, I'll come back to it in the third segment, talk to you about something that we've been working with, the concept of moral injury that I think might help you in replacing this burnout conversation. That it's actually not burnout, but I would really appreciate getting your insight. But we'll leave that for another segment because we're coming up against our break. Want to remind our listeners that they can get a hold of Ron or me by sending an email to asktsoe@thresholdnow.com. The website is The Soul of Enterprise, where you can see show notes as well as previews to upcoming shows. You can rate this podcast by going out to ratethispodcast.com/TSOE, our Patreon channel, patreon.com/TSOE, where you can hear the show commercial free, as well as get our bonus episodes. But right now, a word from our sponsors.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We're here with Jackie Meyer. And Jackie, I promised not to ask you about pricing, so let me ask you about this, the pipeline. Why do we have a pipeline problem in this profession? What's your take?
Because the work people assume that we do sucks, right? It's like the Office show. We're just like robots, right? And that's not at all what we do. There's so many really cool things that we do, especially around advisory. I think that we need more direction, which I'm looking forward to with, our new head of the AI CPA in regards to how to do advisory work. how to stand out as a CPA doing advisory work, because right now audit is literally like the only thing that I think being a CPA you have to be there for. And we need to completely change that script. So yeah, it's very boring what people think we do. You know I've heard people say, don't say that we're cool because that just looks dumb. And it's like, but we are cool. If you have a passion and purpose for what you do, you need to tell people about it, right?
So why don't we?
I try.
Oh, I know you do. I know you do. Why aren't more firms out there talking about what they do and, getting, I don't know, their interns to go to conferences like you're at in Vegas with them and let them meet these people and talk to them and see what they do, because I know there's a lot of misunderstanding, because I talk to a lot of high school students about it, and they think we, like you said, we sit in the back room with a green eye shade. And when they learn that we're financial psychiatrists who probably should have couches in our office
Right.
and know everything about our customers, they're like, wow, that's intriguing. I didn't know that. Isn't that our fault? And it's not the AICPA's fault. It's people in the profession's fault for not getting out there and putting on a better, explanation of what we really do.
I think everyone can absorb a little bit of blame. I mean, it's tough when you're down in the weeds the day to day of like, okay, well, how do I go help other people turn to this? They've done a really good job, and we've seen a lot of progress this last year with the numbers of, accounting grads and reducing the hours and all that kind of jazz to get more people in the profession. I'm actually very pleasantly surprised that started to work. Because I didn't really see the why behind it. Like, how did we get so many more people? Was it us just talking more about it? I don't know. I don't know the why behind those numbers, but they are showing in a good uptick direction.
And here's a bigger problem, I think, than the pipeline, the top of the funnel. The 3 to 7 people that just leave.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that happens?
The 3 to 7 people that just leave. What do you mean? Who are the 3 to 7?
3 to 7 years.
Oh.
and they leave.
Bob and Jane? Oh, okay. Yeah. Because they're put into crappy work. I mean, they're doing bottom of the barrel stuff. The managers are still coming out of that old mindset of like, you have to do your diligence and then you get to earn your more work. We need to actually be putting advisory services and training into colleges and maybe even high school. So integrating how to do tax advisory and whatnot. I've reached out to several colleges to offer my services and they're not taking me up on it, which is probably a good thing because I do way too much stuff anyways. But yeah, we need more training that's focused on advisory and how to do it. For I think college students to be able to kick off strong in that area, instead of being like, you have to do 2 years of compliance work before you can do any advisory, or you have to do 8 years of compliance work before you do any advisory. I don't agree with that at all. I think that anyone can go like straight into advisory. You just have to be like a detective and have a passion for wanting to help people. And then you can hone in on, if you're a smart person, you can hone in on like 6 things that can really help a business out and then just like run with it, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, this advisory thing is not a new idea. We mentioned Ed mentioned Paul Dunn. Paul Dunn created a program back in the 90s. We've been talking about this for 30 some odd years. Why do you think that most CPAs haven't made this transition to advisory? What do you think some of the reasons are?
I think it's too gray for them, just like with the value pricing stuff. It's too gray, and they're not getting instructions and directions from our governing bodies that are like, hey, this is exactly how people are doing this well and doing it right. There's a lot of risk involved in our job, and accountants are naturally don't gravitate towards risk, right? I mean, I realized I'm a little bit different. I was a finance undergrad. I thought I would be a financial planner, and I started working for a financial planner / CPA in Fort Worth, started doing tax prep, and like fell in love with finding like magical money for people, right? But I don't think I'm like a lot of accountants. I think they really like that structure, right? And we're not giving enough of that structure and confidence.
Yeah, my big answer is I think that we're caught up in being the professional, which means we're supposed to have all the answers. And
Hmm.
consultants and advisors are not paid for answers, they're paid for more beautiful questions. And we think that's a
Exactly.
sign of ignorance to ask questions. And it's the farthest thing from the truth. Without a good question, a great answer has nowhere to go.
Oh yeah, questions are everything. I mean, the whole coaching methodology and drawing answers out of people, but then also just asking questions so that you can add your knowledge on top of that. It's game changing. I love it.
Yeah, and we think questions are everything as well. Um, Let me ask you this. AI, I see AI as being one of the biggest impetuses to adopt value pricing because technology eats hours. Um,
Hmm.
how do you see AI unfolding in terms of business model innovation? What do you think it's going to the impacts it's going to have?
It's interesting because some days I'm like, there's always that human element that we can bring to the table in advisory and stand out. But AI does advisory really well too. It has some great questions. It can bring a lot to the table. It can process a heck of a lot more than we can as humans. And so I love AI. I love it. I've seen both sides of it with integrating it into TaxPlanIQ, but then also realizing like where that human element really does shine still. And so it is the future. We have to embrace it as like our BFF and just like use it to like the best way that you possibly can every single day. I mean, I use it for every single thing I do all the time. And it saves from like I heard someone say a couple days ago, they went from 3 days trying to find the answer to a question. Then they asked a specialist who took 3 hours and still didn't find the answer. And then they asked ChatGPT and it took 3 minutes. So it's like, wow, 3 days to 3 minutes. That's pretty cool. But we can't focus on how we're getting to the answers we're getting to. We have to focus on the fact that we can do that because it is a really unique skill, I think, to be able to interpret all of this data and knowledge from AI or anywhere and then come up with the best answer, right?
I'm curious about the white space when AI saves you 10 hours a week. What do you do with that extra time?
I think people are scared of that. Yeah. Because I mentioned the 4 hour work week. I did this like balance sheet workshop a couple weeks ago. And I was like, y'all can get in as many hours back in a week as you want. And then I saw an AI expert from OpenAI speak 2 years ago saying that we were all going to be playing volleyball on the beach while AI like does all our work or something. I think honestly that really scares us because we are very strong workers in this profession and we don't know what to do with our time. But figure it out or just start another business. I mean,
Well, I think it gives us more time to be human, right? And
yeah,
have human
yeah,
connections with
for
customers.
sure.
I, no profession, no entrepreneurs is concerned about working hard. I don't know of anybody who's changed the world in a significant way that wasn't a workaholic. This idea
Yeah.
that we can have languid days at the museum, this is just BS. The world does not, I don't think we're tired because, or burnt out because we work hard. I
Yeah.
think we're tired and burnt out because of moral injury, that we're not living our purpose as professionals, that we're not making
Hmm.
the impact that we know we could because we have too many customers. We go from one thing to another without stepping back and reflecting, like after action reviews teach us to do. And I think it's moral injury more than burnout.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I haven't heard y'all talk about the moral injury side of things yet, but yeah, definitely interested to hear more about it because burnout is, everything just kind of falls into that, right? You're like, oh, you must be burnout, you must be burnout. But you're right. I mean, I love certain aspects of work, and then I really don't like other aspects of it. And I rearranged my entire time and schedule every day and blocked like every hour to where I knew that I was like being utilized in the right areas and things that I really love to do. And so I totally agree. I think that people miss their purpose. I used to actually put a little sticky note like on my laptop or computer every day to like help me remember what that purpose was, because you can get lost in it sometimes. When y'all mentioned being like a financial counselor, I wanted to be a true counselor growing up. And then my somebody I knew was a counselor and they were nasty crazy. So I was like, I am not going that direction.
Yeah.
I'm going to go take care of myself, make sure I make money. That's why I became a CPA. That's not passion, right? That's just like just dealing with being in an economy. But I've been able to bring it full circle back, because what we do is really like financial counseling, but we don't have to get into the nitty gritty of like deep diving into the trauma of why somebody like is emotionally like totally messed up, but we can still figure out their finances for them and then help them feel better in general. So I love it.
Yeah. No, burnout. Uh, it was coined in 1970. We've been talking about burnout now for 55 years, and the stats on it haven't gotten any better. You still read 50% of pick your profession: doctors, dentists, CPAs, lawyers. 50% suffer from burnout. Well, Jackie, if I went through your home and changed all your light bulbs and 50% of them blew out, would I blame the individual bulb or would I blame the electrical system? And in our case, I think the electrical system, which is the business model, is to blame. It's tracking every 6 minutes of your time. It's billing for every minute, for every interaction, for every phone call, for every meeting. That's not how we're wired as professionals. We're here to guide transformations. And you can't do that by staring at the clock and worrying about the math of the moment.
For sure.
And
Yeah,
that's
that's true.
and that's moral injury, not burnout.
Okay. Got it. Yeah.
It's a
Well,
much
gosh,
better diagnosis. Much
I'm gonna
better
have to
diagnosis.
rename the subtitle of my upcoming book.
So no more yoga, no more mindfulness, no more, nap pods and this stuff, it's all bandages until we fix the business model. The business model, I think, is what kicks the 3 to 7 year person out. You talk to anybody who's left public accounting and took a CFO job in industry, and you ask them, call them up and say, how's your job going? What's the first thing out of their mouth?
Great.
I love it. I don't have to do a timesheet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's a lot of good reasons, but yeah, that's a really good one.
That's not the only one, but it's part of the bigger business model, the mindset that, the values and the time. Like you said, it's not. It's in the knowledge, and it's in the relationship that we have. And relationships don't scale. This is why concierge doctors are kicking ass. Because they
I
limit
know you
themselves.
love the concierge aspect, and I do too. I mean, my firm, I was called the Concierge CPA. That's the name of my podcast. I was just telling some executive of the ICPA this week. I was like, that word concierge never really caught on with our industry, but it should have. I mean, it's what people want and need, and that's where you can really feel like your purpose is there. But
I
yeah,
wrote
there's still
about
so
it in
much
my first book.
resistance.
I wrote about it in my first book in 1998 because our colleague had that idea, Dan Morris, of being a concierge CPA. He says, I don't want to be a one-stop shop because I can't. I want to be the first stop shop where my customers call me first, ask me whatever. Can you get me Super Bowl tickets? Can you get me into the French Laundry? Whatever it might be. He says,
Yeah,
because if I can't do it, somebody in my network can. So
right.
his idea of concierge was leveraging his social capital, which was
For sure.
brilliant. And he knew this back in the 90s when I met him, before I met him.
Love it.
So anyway, well, Jackie, unfortunately, we're up against it. And folks, I'd like to remind you, if you want to contact me or Ed, send us an email to asktsoe@thresholdnow.com. Do check us out on Patreon, where you can get access to our bonus content. You can do that at patreon.com/TSOE. And now a word from our sponsors.
And we are back with Jackie Meyer, the founder of TaxPlanIQ. And all right, I'm not supposed to ask this question, Jackie, but I was at the 40 under 40, and you weren't there.
Yeah, well,
so did you not? So did you not make it, or did you turn 41?
I need to correct you earlier. So I aged out or graduated in 2022. Yeah. Okay. So I'm 41 now, but I was like about to turn 40 that year or something like that. I don't know. I'm like, geez, this is a lot. And now everyone has to know exactly how old I am, like whether I qualify for 40 under 40 or not. But yeah, I miss that stuff. I miss that stuff.
That that's the downside of those age-based ones, right? Is that you do age out of it, and people then know your age. You're like, oh, okay. Too funny.
Some people like, oh my gosh, there's some people in there that've been there for like, I feel like 20 years. I'm like, you're not aging at all. Like Caleb, although he like started when he was like 19 or something. He did. I don't know. He's a little Caleb genius child.
He is. So speaking of youngsters, we do have a listener to the live stream, Sean M, and he writes this. So I'd love to get your reaction to this. He's an accounting student here, hand up. Literally no one my age knows what an accountant does other than taxes. So what advice do you have for our friend Sean M? Obviously talk more about it, but it's going to be a struggle for him, right? So let's acknowledge that. But what do you suggest that Sean keep in mind as he's going through his career?
I'm worried for Sean. I don't know if he has mentors or people he can latch onto that feel like they've found their passion and purpose, because it is kind of hard to find. I mean, there's less than 3 to 5% of us, we don't know for sure, but less than 3 to 5% of us that actually do tax advisory. I don't even want to call it tax advisory anymore. I want to call it like ROI advisory, because tax scares everybody. No one wants to do it. And it doesn't define at all what we're doing. We're just trying to help people save money and, find strategies to make their lives better. So, I mean, I would say like go on CPA Academy or something like that and find some advisory CPE for free that you can do to figure out what other options you have. I was advocating, Canopy did this little debate, like old school versus new school accountant. And I was on that last year. And I told them they need to do one like featuring the different types of advisory services and let us like debate out which one's the best and why. Something like that, I think, would really help people identify like what sounds exciting to them, right? And maybe go that direction. But we don't have enough education out there in the public or in colleges or schools that are going to help people make those decisions.
Well, let me just channel my inner Sean M for a second here and just say, like, because you did say that this was a challenge, that there's still a lot of firms out there who are expecting people to do their time before they can be put into advisory practice. So what should Sean M look for in a firm when he's working with? Would you suggest that he go like, top 100, get that experience? Or do you think, he's got to maybe find where he should play first and maybe say, that's not for me if I'm going to have to put in 8 years before I get to do any advisory work? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, I mean, I did Big Four. I came in the back way because I worked full time through college, and I ended up in this like little weird office in the back alleys of Dallas at Deloitte, and then worked my way into the high net wealth division. And everyone said that's what you're supposed to do, but I could barely make it for 2 years. I got like a year, 10 months, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. So I do not advocate for Big Four, Big 100. I advocate for the boutique firms that you can go and interview them and be like, hey, would you say you're a pretty traditional firm? And I mean, just based on that answer is probably going to give you a really good feel for what you'll get exposed to or not. And then I would ask, like, what does make your firm different? Or, what's going to accelerate my career? Do people find a lot of passion and purpose in what they're doing here? And if you're like getting a blank stare, then, you gotta just head for the hills, like get out of there fast.
I completely agree. I mean, I think one of the questions that anyone who's interviewing for any position at any level, whether it's entry level all the way on up to you're going to be, maybe an incoming CEO, is what's the state of the mission statement here? What's the state of the purpose? And if you don't get an active positive response to that, or we have a mission, let me look it up.
Right.
Right.
Let me find it and read it to you real fast.
Right.
Here.
Because if it's not something that is lived by the people in day to day, it's not going to exist, right? And
right.
what I call the default purpose, the default strategy will be put in place, which is increase sales, decrease costs, make the bastards work harder. That's how we're going to do. If there's not something else that's there, that's what's going to replace it. It fills the vacuum, right?
For sure. Yeah. I used to really resist like core values because I thought it was too corporate, and I was still like so anti Deloitte and like big corporate environments and whatnot. But I realized like core values are just like the most important thing, because you have to start with what you believe in as the founder and then expand it to make sure that your team all believe in it. And I mean, we recite our core values at least like monthly, which makes it sound like we're drones, but they're important. They're really important. And like trust is a very, very important thing. Number one thing for me. And so if someone's coming in the door and we're not on the same page about that, or that's not important to them, that's going to cause huge issues going forward in the firm. Right. So, you gotta document that stuff out and have it memorized.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. My mentor, who and who's been on the show a number of times, Howard Hansen, one of the things that he would say is like, if you as a leader, when you hear yourself and are sick of talking about your mission, vision, values, whatever you want to call it, right? There's lots of different names for it. When you're sick of hearing yourself, you're only halfway there.
Yeah.
Right. It's not until your people are like, yeah, we got this, right, or can recite it back, or the behaviors just become ubiquitous. And one firm that I worked with, when they instituted this policy where they had a core value of the month that they followed, and there was like a contest where whoever won a like $25 gift card or whatever for exemplifying that value. The owner of the firm said to me, he says that it was the biggest transformation ever, because I never now worried about what my people was going to do in any given situation, even if it was something that hadn't come up before, because I knew what they were going to do is they were going to run it through the filter of my mission, vision, values before they did anything.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, that's exemplary behavior. Something I love that I know probably a lot of your listeners or viewers probably know about already is EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you're constantly going back to your core values and evaluating every single person and like your people analyzer of, are they meeting those core values? And you literally hire, fire, promote based on that. And it's just like, it's business for dummies. EOS is like business for dummies. Mm-hmm. So it's a really good standard. If people are wondering, where do I start with all this? That's where I would start.
Yeah, I've not worked personally with EOS one-on-one, but everyone that I've talked to that has used it has had a fairly positive experience with it. So mm-hmm. and that says a lot, because there's been a lot of people that have talked about previous iterations of this stuff that have not gone well. So or that they just can't possibly stick with over time because it gets to be too much. So that's a plus there. Well, I've only got 3 more minutes with you, so let's have a little fun here. And I want to know, at Engage, was there anything that you learned this week that surprised you?
I learned some things about some people.
well, perhaps let's.
No. Let me wipe that out of my mind. Let's see. What did I learn? I felt like there was a new like hope and excitement this year that I hadn't felt in the last few years. So, I don't know. I mean, Ron talks about how this stuff's been around for so long and it gets so aggravating and frustrating that like people haven't been doing it. But I think we're kind of in like the perfect storm or perfect environment where we're getting really like squeezed thin, and we have all these new innovations coming, and it's like people are realizing that they have to change. And if they have to feel like they have to be forced to change, and so be it. I don't really care why people change, but change is going to be for the better for everyone. So I feel like there's more movement in that direction.
Yeah, there's a great quote by General Erickson Shecky, who was chief of staff of the U.S. Army under the first George Bush and then into the Clinton years. And the quote is, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. And I think that we may have hit that mark here where because Ron has been talking about irrelevancy for 5+ years when he gets listed on the top 100 most influential people. I know for a number of years in a row he put what's the top concern of the CPA profession. He should relevancy. So are we becoming less and less relevant? So, well, Jackie, Ron's going to take you the rest of the way home, but I just want to thank you for appearing today, especially from your hotel room in Las Vegas, and hopefully you can get out of there in one piece. I know you've been there a long time, but I can take it for about 48 hours. So bless you for being there longer. But we're up against our break. Want to remind our listeners they can contact Ron or me by sending an email to asktsoe@thresholdnow.com. The website is The Soul of Enterprise, where you can see show notes as well as previews to upcoming shows. But right now, a word from our sponsors.
Welcome back, everybody. We're here with Jackie Meyer. And Jackie, what's your take on private equity?
Oh, I think private equity is going to be really disappointed in years to come. But I do like the fact that firms are getting valued a lot higher than they used to be. 1x ARR isn't the standard anymore. When I sold my firm in 2022, I sold for 1.5 ARR. And that was only because I was in a business group of outside of the industry. And they were like, you only get 1x annual revenue, like average for your firm? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, that's crazy. That is crazy compared to other industries. You should ask for more. And I was like, okay. And I did, and I got it. And I felt really good about it at the time. But I mean, now we're seeing things go above 2x ARR, et cetera. I was worried because I think it might have been at Engage last year. I watched a session from a PE guy, and he talked about how they don't care what services you're offering. And that really worried me because it's like, well, yeah, at the end of the day, the numbers matter. And I guess that's all they care about. But the numbers aren't going to accelerate at the pace that these firms want, right? At the investment pace that they want, if you're not doing the right kind of services. So I'm worried about that. What do you think?
I'm on the fence about it. I have a lot of problems with private equity because to me, they don't seem, when they came into the car wash industry, HVAC industry, they changed the business model. They put those companies on subscriptions. They're not doing that with CPA firms. They're doubling down on billable hours, realizations, all of that.
It's so weird.
They're consecrating moral injury is what they're doing. They're embalming it with new capital. I agree. It's exciting to be paid fair market value rather than, book value for
sure.
for your firm. But These guys, they have a short-term time horizon, 5-7 years. I mean, a profession, and we say we're a profession. I think we can dispute that, but put that aside. If we're a profession, you can't price a profession. You pledge it. You pledge it. It's something you are. It's not just something you do. When you don the mantle of physician, that's your being. You take an oath. And the oath is, if I betray these words, may my own life be destroyed. Some of the Hippocratic oaths that are taken. And I don't think private equity understands that.
For sure. And then you see, like Oliver or whatnot saying that you hear that they're even asking accountants to not state that they're a CPA anymore because it's hurting them versus helping them. And it's just a really, really concerning time for the profession if we don't have change. And that's why I'm excited to see that I think we are. But I really think as of a year ago, I would have said the CPA is almost dead. And I know that's very controversial, and I am a CPA. I love being a CPA, but I just don't think it's going to survive if we don't move towards that change.
Yeah. And here's a dirty little secret though. I joined Pete Mark Mitchell in 1984. So I come from the Big 8 era. That's how you carbon date us, right? They would not allow anyone to use CPA to hang the certificate in their offices. Couldn't do it. This is nothing new. The Big 4 always thought its brand was better than the CPA brand. To this day, the Big 4, you can't find CPA on their website. Good luck. You can find it on the audit reports they sign. It'll say, Ernst & Young or whatever, certified public accountants, but you won't find it anywhere else.
Yeah,
so This is nothing new. This is not PE's fault.
Yeah. I also don't understand why consulting is completely dying in the Big 4. They're completely closing down those divisions when that's the most exciting thing to think about and work towards for a smaller boutique firms. It's opposite. I don't know why that's happening to them.
Sarbanes-Oxley is part of it. Just the the whole independence thing. I'm really curious. I know Mark has been on this listening tour, via email and going out there and talking. What did you say to him? Because I have a laundry list a mile long about what I want to see change. But I'm curious.
Actually, I meant to pull it up because I have a feeling y'all are going to want to talk about this. So first of all, I'm very concerned about contingent fees and the direction that contingent fees are going. The fact that people kept assuming that the value pricing methodology that I was offering is a contingent fee is just one more reason why they can't do it. Right. And it never was. It never was. It never will be. Yep. So, but I hate the fact that there's so many restrictions on the CPA that a non-certified person can do the same work, charge whatever the heck they want, charge a contingent fee or anything they want. And it's really sloppy work and bad practices, but they're making a ton more money and they're having a lot more success. So I honed in on two messages around contingent fees and how we need to work towards more relaxation in those, towards more the attorney model where it's more allowable and flexible. And, unfortunately, the IRS is going the opposite direction with it right now, but the AICPA is fighting it a bit. I did not see it listed on Mark's big keynote slide of what he's focusing on in the next year. That was not listed. So I was a little disappointed about that, but I guess there's only so much they can do about that particular side. At least I think they're on the right mindset. And then the other thing that I was really fighting for is tax advisory services, because we went from nothing to the personal financial services division or whatever, which is these financial planners at the AICPA. It was too big of a leap. It was way too big of a leap. And there's not enough people that are doing it. And tax advisory is in the middle of that, but they need to bridge the gap of just here's one specific way of doing income tax advisory in the US or whatever that's going to be profitable and how you can price it, etc. And so I was I am here. I am willing. I am one of the top experts in the world on this matter at this point. I'm volunteering my time. I can help you create a certification or anything like that. So I was just reiterating that to him. He did, respond. He was very kind and very detailed. And he hooked me up with several other executives at the AICPA. And then we have had really good movement with the pricing methodology. I mean, it's really hard to get the AICPA to release these things. So I'm excited about that. But yeah, those were my top two things. And I did mention, I think the profession is going to die if we don't double down on helping people understand how to do the better work and making sure that the CPA designation revolves around that work, right? Like you have to be a CPA to know that you're going to be the top expert in your field around TAS services or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. I mean, we have that, like you said, we have that in audit. And if you read, I don't know if you've ever come across Baruch Lev, a professor at New York, he's now retired, but he wrote a book called The End of Accounting. And he was basically saying, listen, we think the audit is the gold standard for investment and protecting the capital markets. It's less than 5% of the information that investors use to make decisions.
Yeah, and no one wants to do it.
Yeah, and he just tore down the audit brick by brick by brick and said this is completely useless. Every time SEC drops financial reports onto Edgar, where you can download, they get about 12 downloads on average.
Oh my gosh.
Nobody's reading these things, and yet we're spending billions of dollars, making companies spend billions of dollars, much more for peekaboo and all the rules they have dumped on it. And the thing is an Etzel. It's completely obsolete. I want to get rid. I want to get rid of the monopoly in audit. I want to open it up to financial statement insurance. Let Lloyd's of London come in, and for investors that want to buy financial statement insurance, they'll write a policy. They'll write a policy for anything. And also,
I think that's a great idea.
And let the stock market exchanges, NASDAQ, S&P, let them hire and pay the auditors. That would remove. You can't be independent if you're paid by the company you're auditing. I don't care.
Right. That never made sense, right?
That doesn't make sense. And economists have been saying this for 50 years and nobody listens. But yeah, let the stock exchanges do it. Let them hire the auditors.
Well, I haven't seen an update on this, but I saw about 3 weeks ago, they were considering getting rid of the PCAOB board. And I'm like,
folded into the SEC.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Oh, I think it'd be great. I think we should get rid of our license. I don't think we should be licensed by the state. I think the AICPA should do what the actuaries and mechanics do. And the doctors are board certified. And they're board certified by the insurance companies and by the hospitals that they work in. Because if you're a doctor and you have a license, you can do anything. You can do brain surgery one day, you can do psychiatry tomorrow, but you can't because you're not going to be able to get board certified. That's what really protects the public is board certification, not the license from the state. And because we're licensed in 50 different states, the AICPA is a fraternity. You violate their rules, the worst they can do is kick you out. It's the state boards of accountancy that have the power over our butts. And I think that needs to go away.
Ooh, deep stuff. Okay, I'm gonna have y'all onto my podcast so I can ask y'all like a billion more questions about this because there's so much more to discuss. Oh my God.
Awesome. Well, Jackie, thank you so much. This has been great. We really appreciate you taking the time out from a busy Vegas schedule to be here. And Ed, what do we have on store for next week?
Next week, Ron, we are going to talk to Barry Labov, who is talking about the power of differentiation. Really look forward to that conversation as well.
Excellent. I'll see you in 167 hours.
This has been The Soul of Enterprise, Business in the Transformation Economy, sponsored by Woodard, building your ideal practice with coaching, education, community, and resources. Join us next week at 3 p.m. Eastern, that's noon Pacific. In the meantime, visit us at www.thesoulofenterprise.com.